I used to think that houses were just structures: wood, paint, bricks, windows. But that was before I learned that some houses remember things. Some houses hold on to the people who lived inside them. Their memories, their regrets, and sometimes their curses. I didn't believe any of that when my mom drove us up the long, cracked driveway on a cold October morning, the sky heavy and gray above us. I was annoyed, tired, frustrated, and honestly embarrassed. We had moved 3 times in the last 2 years because life kept falling apart piece by piece. Dad left first. Money left second. Hope left third. This house was supposed to be a new beginning. But from the moment I first saw it, I swear it felt like an ending. It stood at the edge of a forest, tall, crooked trees leaning toward the roof like they were watching it. The paint on the siding had peeled away in long vertical strips, like old scars. One upstairs window was boarded shut. Another one was cracked, taped, and smudged with something I thought, just for a second, looked like fingerprints. My little brother, Milo, stared at it with wide eyes. "Is someone living inside already?" he asked softly. Mom forced a smile, the kind that fools no one, especially not your own kids. "No, sweetheart. It's been empty for years. The landlord just didn't have time to fix everything." That was the first lie she told us, and maybe the kindest one. We stepped out of the car. The air smelled like damp leaves and something else, something faint but sour. I tried to ignore it. Milo held my hand tightly. He was 10, but he'd been clinging more lately, like he could sense the weakness in our lives and was afraid everything might collapse again. Mom knocked on the front door, even though the landlord said it would be unlocked. The sound echoed, not like someone knocking on wood, but like knocking on a hollow box. Mom tried to laugh. "See? Perfectly fine." She twisted the handle. The door creaked open on its own, like it was waiting for us. The air inside was colder than outside, and it smelled wrong. Not dirty, not moldy, just wrong. A smell you couldn't name, but instantly wanted to walk away from. Milo tugged my sleeve. "Do we have to stay here?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "We don't have a choice," Mom muttered, stepping inside. She wouldn't look at us when she said it. The living room was big. Old wooden floors. A fireplace covered in dust. Faded wallpaper peeling at the corners. It might have been beautiful once, but now it looked like something abandoned in the middle of a nightmare. There was a large painting on the wall. A woman in an old-fashioned dress holding a book. Her face was pale. Too pale. And even though the room was cold, her cheeks in the painting were flushed red, like she was alive, embarrassed, or had just been crying. Her eyes were unsettling. "They followed you, no matter where you moved." Mom tried to sound positive. "We can make this work. A little cleaning, a little love." But when she looked at the painting, her expression changed. She stared too long, like she recognized the woman. I touched her arm. "Mom? You okay?" She blinked quickly. "Yeah, just tired." But her voice trembled, and that was the moment I realized. Mom was afraid too. The guest room door. The guest room was at the end of a narrow hallway. It looked newer than the rest of the house. The door was white, with a silver knob, and a small metal lock. On the floor, right outside it, the carpet was torn in a perfect circle, like something heavy had been dragged out of the room long ago. "That door stays closed," Mom said suddenly. Her voice was sharp, different, strained. Milo frowned. "Why? What's inside?" "Nothing," Mom swallowed. "Just storage. The landlord said we shouldn't go in there. The door sticks. It's dangerous." But I saw her hands shaking. And the lock. It was new, shiny, recently replaced. My chest tightened. Something wasn't right. Something in this house didn't want to be opened. The first night, we didn't finish unpacking. We didn't talk much. Mom kept busy in the kitchen, pretending the old cabinets and stained counters were normal. Milo stayed close to me, following me from room to room like a shadow. By 10 p.m., the house was quiet. Too quiet. No traffic. No neighbors. No sounds from outside, except the wind brushing through the trees. But inside the house, every noise felt amplified. The creaking floorboards. The humming of the old refrigerator. The ticking of a clock we didn't own. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself this was just another house, another move, another temporary chaos in our already chaotic lives. At 2:17 a.m., I heard it. A sound coming from the wall between my room and Milo's. At first, it was subtle, like a faint shifting noise, wood settling, or old pipes expanding. Then it happened again, soft, slow, heavy. Knock. A single tap from inside the wall. I froze. Another knock. Then, a third. Milo's voice came through the darkness. "Are you awake?" He was standing in my doorway, trembling. "You heard it too," I whispered. He nodded, eyes huge. "It's coming from the guest room wall." My stomach twisted, because the guest room was locked, and according to Mom, no one was inside. We both listened. Silence. Then, thump, 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 louder this time. More deliberate. Rhythmic, like something, or someone, was trying to get our attention. Milo clutched my arm. "Is there something living in there?" I didn't know how to answer, because the sound didn't feel like an animal. Animals scratch. They scurry. They whimper. This sound, it felt aware, controlled, human. And then, a dry, raspy cough echoed through the wall. Not from our side, from the other side. From inside the locked room, Milo started crying silently. I pulled him close. "Don't move," I whispered. We stood there listening to the impossible sound of footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps, moving across the guest room floor. Then everything went quiet. Too quiet, like the house was holding its breath. Milo whispered, "I don't think the house is empty." And in that moment, I finally understood. This was not a new beginning. It was a warning we didn't understand. Not yet, but we would. Soon. Very soon. The room that should have stayed locked. The morning after the knocking, the house felt different. Not haunted, not cursed. Just aware, like it knew we had heard something we weren't supposed to. Like it was waiting for our reaction. I made breakfast, pretending everything was normal. Cereal for Milo, black coffee for Mom, forced optimism for myself. Mom looked exhausted. She had the kind of tired face that didn't come from lack of sleep, but from trying to hold her entire world together with shaking hands. She didn't ask how we slept. Maybe she didn't want to know. Milo kept glancing toward the hallway, toward the guest room door. Every time the fridge hummed or the floor creaked, he flinched. Mom noticed. "You okay, sweetheart?" He opened his mouth, but I cut in quickly. "He's fine. We're both just tired from unpacking." Mom gave that same brittle smile she'd been wearing for months. "We'll all adjust. It's just a house. Old houses make noise." But she wouldn't meet my eyes, and she didn't look toward the guest room once. The house in daylight. After breakfast, I walked through the house trying to reassure myself everything was normal. Daylight changed a lot. The wallpaper didn't look as tired. The floors didn't look as mean. But the house still had a presence. Like the walls were breathing with us. I wandered into the living room. The painting of the pale woman still hung above the fireplace. Her eyes felt even more focused in the daylight, like the sunlight sharpened her expression instead of softening it. I reached up and touched the frame. Cold. Much colder than the air. "Who were you?" I whispered. The woman's painted mouth seemed too close to forming a word. A faint sound came from behind the wall. A shift. A drag. A slow scrape. I stepped back quickly. This house was not empty. Mom's warning. By afternoon, Mom had cleared out a small space in the backyard where she said we'd start a garden. She was trying so hard to act normal it made my chest hurt. While she pulled weeds, I stood beside her. "Mom," I said quietly, "something's wrong with that room." Her hands stopped moving. "Which room?" "You know which. The guest room. Something was inside last night." She froze. Then she whispered, "Don't talk about that room. Ever." Her voice wasn't angry. It was afraid. "Mom, we heard knocking. And footsteps. And..." Her eyes snapped up, sharp and terrified. "Stop." I'd never seen her look like that. Not even when Dad left. I lowered my voice. "Just tell me the truth." But she shook her head. "The landlord gave strict instructions about that room." A pause, and I agreed. "Why?" "Because that door stays closed. Because it's safer that way. For all of us. For us or for whatever's in there." She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed my shoulders, her fingers trembling. "There are rules in this house," she whispered harshly. "Rule 1. Don't go near that door at night. Rule 2. If you hear something, ignore it. Rule 3. Whatever you do, never unlock that door." My stomach dropped. "What's inside it?" Mom's voice broke. "Something that belongs to this house. Not to us." Her words hit me like ice. And then, before I could ask anything else, the wind picked up suddenly, whipping through the yard. The trees began to sway violently. The house groaned, loudly, like something inside it reacted to our conversation. Mom's grip tightened. "We shouldn't talk about this outside," she whispered. "It listens." We rushed inside. The note. Later that evening, while Mom made dinner and Milo watched TV, I walked toward the hallway again. Something about the guest room door pulled at me. as if curiosity itself had hands and fingers wrapped around my wrist. The air felt colder near the door. Heavier. I knelt and touched the floor where the carpet was torn in that perfect circle. The fibers were strange, flattened, almost burned. Something heavy really had been dragged out of that room long ago. I stood, staring at the silver lock. Then, I noticed something wedged between the door and the frame. A tiny piece of paper. Almost invisible. My heart kicked inside my ribs. I slid it out. A single, yellowed scrap. With messy handwriting. "Don't let him out." My skin crawled. The handwriting didn't look like Mom's. It didn't look new either. I turned the note over. There was something else scribbled on the back. "He sleeps in the walls. He watches through the cracks. He knows your names." My blood went cold. Just then, a soft, dragging sound came from inside the room. Not knocking this time. Walking. Something pacing. Slowly, close to the door. I backed away, heart racing. The footsteps stopped. Then, 3 slow knocks. Tap, tap, tap. Right against the other side of the door. My breath caught in my throat. Then a voice, so faint, so hoarse, it barely sounded human, whispered through the wood, "Let me out." I stumbled backward, shaking. The voice whispered again, more desperate. "I know you hear me." A cold wind swept through the hallway, even though the windows were shut. Then, "Please." The voice dragged out the word like it hurt to speak. "Please. I'm so hungry." I ran. Dinner tension. Mom noticed immediately. "What happened?" "You're pale." I lied. "I'm just tired." Her eyes narrowed. "Did you go near the door?" I didn't answer. Which was answer enough. Mom slammed her fist on the table, so abruptly, that Milo flinched. "I told you not to." She never yelled, ever. But now her voice cracked with panic. "Whatever you heard," she whispered urgently, "it wasn't real." It sounded real. My voice shook. She leaned in close. Her face was inches from mine. Not everything that sounds human is human. Milo's fork clattered onto the floor. Mom instantly softened, reaching for him. "Sweetheart, it's okay. Nothing will hurt us. I promise." But I'd heard the lie in her voice. Her promises meant nothing here. Night 2. If the first night had been unsettling, the second night was a warning. I barely slept. Milo didn't sleep at all. He kept sitting up, whispering he heard breathing in the walls. At 3:11 a.m., the house changed temperature, suddenly freezing. Our breaths turned white, and then we heard it. Not knocking, not footsteps, but scratching. Like fingernails, dragging slowly across wood. Long strokes, deliberate, right behind our bedroom walls. Milo crawled into my bed, shaking. "I think he's moving," he whispered. My body locked, because the sound wasn't coming from just the guest room side anymore. It was moving, through the walls, behind us, around us, slowly, patiently. Exploring. I grabbed Milo's hand and held it tight. The scratching paused. Then, in the pitch darkness, something pressed against the other side of the wall. Hard enough to make the plaster bulge inward for a second. Milo gasped. I slapped my hand over his mouth. "Don't make a sound," I whispered. The bulge in the wall slowly receded. The scratching returned, moving toward the hallway, toward the guest room, toward the door. We listened in absolute terror as the unseen thing slid, dragged, and clawed back into the room it came from. Then, slam. The guest room door shook violently, like something threw its weight against it. Then again, slam. The whole house rattled. Mom burst from her bedroom. She ran to the hallway, grabbing the door with both hands and bracing her body against it. Something pounded from the other side. "No," she shouted. "You stay inside. You hear me? Stay inside." I had never heard her scream like that. Not in my entire life. Then, the pounding stopped. Silence swallowed the house. Mom's breathing echoed in the hallway. A small, broken sound. She turned toward us slowly. "Go back to bed," she whispered. But her face, her shaking, her tears. I knew. She wasn't just scared of the thing in the room. She was scared of how much longer she could keep it inside. The next morning, Mom didn't let us near the hallway. She blocked it off with furniture. Milo kept asking questions she refused to answer. Finally, when he went outside to play with the old tire swing, she pulled me aside. Her voice was hollow. "You need to understand something," she said. "This house has rules. Rules I thought I could follow. But it's getting stronger. It knows you're curious. And it likes attention." My throat tightened. "What is it?" Mom shook her head violently. "It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it stays locked in that room. That's the only way we're safe." I whispered. "Why did we move here if you knew about it?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because this was the only place we could afford. Because the landlord said it was manageable. Because I thought I was strong enough." She looked toward the guest room door, her voice barely audible. But it's waking up faster than I expected, and now, it wants you. My heart dropped. Me? You're older. You notice things. Houses like this. She swallowed hard. They like attention. They feed on it. A cold shiver ran up my spine. Mom, I whispered. What happens if the door opens? She stared at me with dead seriousness. Then the house stops being a house and becomes a trap. A gust of cold wind swept through the hallway, and from behind the blocked guest room door came a whisper. I'm so close. Mom grabbed my hands, panic flooding her face. Part of the house remembers what happened here. Part of it wants us gone. But something in that room, it doesn't want us gone. Her voice broke. It wants out. I didn't tell Mom, but after what happened the previous night, I couldn't shake one thought. Something in that room didn't just want out. It wanted us, and I had no idea why. Mom pushed furniture against the hallway to block the guest room, but by evening, the entire house felt restless, like a living thing pacing behind its own skin. The walls popped, the floors creaked, and a cold draft bled through the vents even though the heater was on. Milo clung to my side. He didn't ask questions anymore. He didn't need to. Children can feel danger without being told. The whisper in the vents. We were in the living room when we heard it. A faint, slow whisper carried through the air vents like a snake slithering through metal. Shh. Don't tell her. Milo stiffened beside me. My heart started pounding. The voice was low, crackling, almost broken, like vocal cords unused for years. I grabbed Milo's wrist and pulled him away from the vent. Mom rushed in from the kitchen. What happened? Nothing. I lied quickly. But the vent behind me made a hollow, echoing sound, like something dragging its fingers across the metal. Mom froze, her face drained of color. She whispered, "It's in the ducts again." Again. So this wasn't new, but it was getting worse. The door moves. At 9:27 p.m., the entire hallway trembled. Not from footsteps, not from pounding, but from breathing. Real, heavy, animal-like breathing from inside the walls. Mom grabbed her emergency kit, an old flashlight, duct tape, and a rusted hammer, and rushed toward the hallway barricade. I followed. The furniture blocking the hall vibrated slightly. Milo hid behind me. Mom pressed her ear to the wall. I could hear it too. Slow, dragging inhales. Wet, crackling exhales. Like something was learning how to breathe again. Mom cursed under her breath. "It's awake too early." "What do you mean early?" I demanded. But she kept listening, her face contorting with dread. Then, click, the guest room door's lock turned on its own. Not fully. Just enough to move. Just enough to signal. "I'm trying." Mom lunged forward and placed her hand on the door. "Not tonight," she whispered to it. Her voice cracked, like this was something she had said before, many times. She pushed her whole weight against it. Something inside the room pushed back. The entire frame shuddered. A long, deep groan leaked through the wood. Not human, not animal. Something in between. Mom screamed, "Stop!" And miraculously, the door went still. She stood there breathing heavily, tears in her eyes. "This isn't normal," I whispered. "It never was," Mom replied softly. Then she whispered something terrifying. "It's stronger now, because it knows you're afraid." The photo. That night, after Mom forced us to bed, I couldn't sleep. Milo finally passed out, curled against my arm, but I lay awake listening to every creak, every shift of cold air. At 2:14 a.m., I made the mistake of checking my phone. A new airdrop request popped up on the screen. Unknown sender would like to share a photo. My stomach dropped. No one else lived close enough for an airdrop signal. Hands shaking, I accepted it. A single blurry photo filled my screen. A dark room, rotting wallpaper, scratches on the floor, a shape crouched in the corner, pale, thin, almost skeletal. Its head was tilted, its eyes wide open, and its mouth, too wide, stretched in a silent scream. It was the guest room. Mom had blocked the hall. The door was locked. No one had gone inside. But the photo was taken from inside the room. The timestamp at the top, 2:13 a.m. 1 minute ago. My heart pounded. Then the screen flickered. Another photo appeared. This one closer. The pale shape's head lifted. Its face inches from the camera. Its eyes black and empty. Its mouth split open into a jagged grin. My breath stuttered. Then the third photo came, taken from the crack under my bedroom door. A pale hand reaching through the darkness of the hallway, trying to get in. I slapped a hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. My phone vibrated. Another message. "Let me in." The letters were shaky, pulled apart, like someone typed with unfamiliar fingers. I turned off the phone, heart slamming in my chest. The scratching in the walls started again. Closer. Mom's confession. I ran to Mom's room and shook her awake. She sat up instantly, eyes wild. What happened? I shoved the phone toward her. She grabbed it, skimmed the photos, and her entire body froze. Her fingers trembled. Her breath hitched. She looked at me with a heartbreakingly helpless expression. I prayed this wouldn't happen, she whispered. But it wants you. It's choosing you. My throat tightened. Why me? Because you heard it first. Because you're older. Because you're aware. She stood, pacing. When things like this wake up, they attach themselves to the most alert mind in the house. The one paying attention. The one who feels the walls watching. I swallowed hard. So what do we do? She looked at me, eyes filled with a fear I'd never seen in any adult. We survive, she whispered, until I can get help. From who? She hesitated. Then finally, from the previous owners. The blood in my veins froze. You told us no one lived here before. Her jaw tightened. They didn't live, they stayed, and they left something behind, I whispered. She closed her eyes. They left him. The house moaned, loudly, like it understood we were talking about it. Mom stepped closer, voice trembling. Listen to me. Whatever you hear tonight, whatever he says, whatever he shows you. She grabbed my face between her hands. Don't let him trick you. He lies. He mimics. He pretends to be human. My breath shook. He sent me photos. I whispered. Mom looked physically sick. That means he's learning technology. It means he understands you. It means... A loud bang cut her off. The guest room door slammed from across the house, even though the hallway was barricaded. Then, a long, dragging sound. Crossing the hall, heading toward us. Milo woke up screaming. Dot. The hallway incident. Mom grabbed Milo. I grabbed the flashlight, and we stepped into the hall. The air felt thick, freezing, heavy with something old and hateful. The furniture blocking the hallway was shaking violently. Something behind it slammed again and again, trying to break through. Mom shoved me and Milo into our room. Lock the door. Mom, do it. I slammed it shut. Locked it. Milo sobbed into my shirt. Outside. Slam. Wood cracking. Furniture sliding. A deep, guttural breath. Mom screamed. Stay back! A voice responded. Not Mom's. Not human. Deep, broken. Dragged through years of dust. Let me out. Then, silence. Horrifying silence. I pressed my ear against the door. Mom whispered something I couldn't hear. Then, the guest room door screeched open. Metal, wood, pain. Something stepped into the hallway. Soft, wet footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming toward us. Mom screamed for us to stay inside. Something heavy hit the floor. Then, dragging, like someone pulling their body with broken limbs. My heart hammered like it was trying to escape my chest. Then, a whisper right outside our door. I can see you. Milo covered his ears. I held him tight. The doorknob twitched. Once, twice, then slowly began to turn. I lunged forward, grabbing the knob with both hands, holding it still. Cold metal burned my skin, like someone's frozen fingers were on the other side. The voice whispered through the crack. Let me in. I'm hungry. My entire body trembled. Then, suddenly, Mom shouted something down the hallway. Stop! The footsteps paused. The thing turned. And then, the house shook violently. Lights flickered. Something roared. Not animal, not human. Then, silence. Complete, suffocating silence. Mom's voice came next. Weak, trembling. It's locked, for now. The final warning. She opened our door, face ghost pale, hair wild, hand bleeding. You two need to sleep in my room tonight, she whispered. But I couldn't move. I stared at her bleeding hand. What happened? I whispered. She swallowed hard. I touched the door. Her voice cracked, and it touched me back. She led us to her room, locked the door, and pushed a dresser against it. Before turning off the lights, she whispered, tomorrow, things will get worse. We need to leave soon, before the house decides to keep us. Then she looked at me specifically. And before he decides to step out again. The house groaned. A whisper floated through the vents. Tomorrow. Mom squeezed her eyes shut. We don't have much time left. The night the truth spoke back. I barely slept after what happened in the woods. Even when exhaustion finally forced my eyes shut, my mind kept replaying the same nightmare. The silhouette of a boy standing behind the trees, staring at me, even though he had no face. Just darkness. A human-shaped void watching me breathe. By morning, my body felt heavy, like every muscle belonged to someone else. I stayed in bed longer than usual, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of my apartment heater clicking on and off. The world outside was quiet, too quiet, as if the entire town held its breath with me. I knew I couldn't run from this anymore. Not from the voices, not from the woods, not from the boy, and definitely not from my mother's diary, which still waited on my desk like a truth I wasn't ready to swallow. But I had to, because last night, when I stepped out of the house with the diary in my hand, the whispers in the trees grew louder, so loud I could hear words forming. Come home. We've waited. You belong. My legs went cold, just remembering it. No more running, no more ignoring. This all started with her, so the answers had to be inside that diary. I sat up, grabbed the journal, and opened it again, this time flipping beyond the scribbles, beyond the warnings, beyond the drawings of the boy in the woods. I turned page after page until the ink began to smear into rushed handwriting, like she'd been writing while shaking. That's where the real story began. Mom's diary, final entry, translated as I read it. If you're reading this, you survived the calling longer than I did. The woods know you now. They chose you the moment you were born. My throat dried. I kept reading. When I was pregnant with you, I made a mistake. I asked the woods for help. I begged them for a child because the doctors told me my body wouldn't allow one. I froze, but nothing comes without a price. A chill crawled down my spine as the words sunk in. The boy in the woods, he was meant to be my first child. I refused him when I got pregnant with you. And the woods don't forgive refusals. My heart slammed against my ribs. I felt the air thicken around me. He follows you because you took what was supposed to be his. He is your brother. The room felt like it tilted sideways. Brother. The faceless boy was my brother? No, this couldn't be real. My mother had been sick, paranoid. Trauma makes people write impossible things, right? I kept reading. Maybe she'd written something that explained it all, something that made sense, something sane. I tried to give him a life. I left offerings. I begged the woods to accept another price, any price, but they said no. They said he belongs to you now. And when I die, he will call you home. My stomach twisted violently. Forgive me. I didn't mean to curse you. The writing stopped abruptly, not like she finished. Like something cut her off. A final, shaky sentence sat alone at the bottom of the page. Don't answer when he calls your name. I closed the diary slowly. My reflection in the black computer screen across the room looked pale, almost gray. I didn't trust my breath, my heartbeat, or the way my hands shook. This wasn't just a haunting. This wasn't just trauma. This was a claim. And I was the one being claimed. A sudden knock on the door jolted me so hard the diary slipped from my hands and hit the floor. 3 slow knocks. Not loud, almost gentle. Too gentle. I stayed completely still. Every instinct screamed at me not to answer. Then it came again. 3 knocks. I swallowed, crawled slowly to the peephole, pressed my eye against the cold metal. No one was there. But something was. A soft whisper floated through the door. I know you read it. I stumbled back, hands pressed to my mouth. My knees felt like they would collapse under me. I managed to choke out. What do you want? Silence. Then, I want what was promised. The apartment suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too close. I reached for my phone and fumbled to dial 911. But before my finger hit the button, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. My breath fogged. A shadow slipped under the door. A shape, small, human, childlike. My phone fell from my hand with a thud. The shadow elongated, pulling itself into the room. It rose up, forming shoulders, a head, tiny arms. The faceless boy. I stumbled backward until my back hit the wall. Stay away from me. He tilted his head. Even without eyes, I felt him staring directly at me. Then he spoke. An echo layered with something not human. I want to be part of you. What does that even mean? He stepped closer. My vision blurred. My hearing faded. A dizziness swept over me like thick water. He reached out his hand. The moment his fingers touched my skin, my entire body filled with voices, 1,000 whispers flooding my mind, pushing, pulling, screaming, come home, come home, come home. I collapsed to my knees. The room darkened. The walls stretched. The ceiling dissolved. I was no longer in my apartment. I was in the woods again. The moon hung low, swollen and red, like an open wound. The trees rose around me like giants, twisting, bending, breathing. The boy stood beside me, now clearer, more defined. Almost real. His face slowly formed, eyes first, wide and black, then a nose, a mouth that curled into a fragile, sorrowful smile. He looked like me, same jawline, same hair, same dimple on the cheek. My stomach lurched. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered. He blinked, and for the first time, I saw pain in his expression. Because I was never born. Tears filled his new eyes. "You got the life I was promised. Mother chose you, but the woods chose me first." I shook my head. "I didn't ask for that. None of this is my fault." He stepped closer, and the trees leaned in with him. "I know." His voice cracked. Then his expression hardened. "But someone must return the debt." My blood iced. "Debt?" He nodded slowly. "A life for a life." The forest began to pulse around us like a beating heart. Roots slithered toward my feet. Branches curled down toward my shoulders. Shadows circled my throat like cold hands. I screamed, but the forest swallowed the sound. The boy touched my cheek, and everything went still. "Don't be afraid," he whispered. "I'll take care of your life the way you lived it." What do you mean?" He smiled softly. "When I take your place, you'll take mine." The ground cracked beneath me, opening like a mouth. Darkness swirled below, whispering, calling, pulling. I clawed at the dirt, kicking, fighting. "No, stop, please." He leaned down, face inches from mine. "A life for a life." And then I fell. I woke up gasping, on the forest floor, covered in dirt, frozen, alone. I looked at my hands, small, weak, childlike. My breath hitched. My voice, when I screamed, was not mine. It was high, thin, broken. I scrambled to my feet and stumbled toward the edge of the woods, heart racing. Leaves cut my skin. Branches pulled at my clothes. When I reached the tree line, I looked toward the town, and I saw him. The boy, except he wasn't a boy anymore. He was me, standing at the road, wearing my clothes, my face, my body. He turned slowly and looked directly at me, smiling. Then he whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Thank you, brother," and walked away into my life. While I stood there, lost, voiceless, trapped, as the woods closed behind me, claiming me forever.